Beyonce's Renaissance, 16 songs, hour and 2 minutes long. So, is this the first Beyonce record we get to do on the podcast, or do we do?
I think we did some No, yeah.
Yeah, because Lemonade was 2016. I couldn't remember if Lemonade was 2017 or 16 because you had like some stuff like the
Lion
little
King
things here or
things.
there.
There was a
Yeah.
live album which we didn't really focus on because like Beyonce's Beyonce. She needs literally no introduction.
Yep.
And this is still kind of, Beyonce in being a prominent music artist for 20 years now has done a really excellent job of being the top, if not one of the top pop artists, performers in the musical game right now in the world. She's done a really good job of changing things up and changing her sound here. But even Renaissance is a really, really bold step forward that I think solidifies things that, thinking back a lot while reviewing this record and while thinking about Audioface as like in totality, we've talked about how electronic music has been at the forefront of what pop music was becoming. But we really weren't feeling that until I think Dua Lipa's Future Nostalgia was a really big point where you got this like 80s kind of dance kind of thing. Lady Gaga, Charlie XCX, a number of artists have continued to do that on the pop scene. You've started to see a little bit of that in rap. A lot of that started to show up in R&B. And now this year, with releases from Drake and now this, it's becoming more and more clear that maybe the sound of the 20s, or at least this early 20s, as we're coming out of the 10s, is this disco-y dance, like, in this album specifically, very much Chicago and Detroit house inspired, like, music, so to speak. But, like, overall, just, like, dance is really starting to percolate in a lot of music. And I think that's really interesting. Beyonce's take on it is a lot to go into. Overall, very good. I wanted to know what your thoughts are. Later in the video, we're going to talk about how this is like a 3 album
Oh yeah.
project,
Okay.
but like it's all the way at the end, so I want to reference that.
Yeah. So this is this is a record that's going to take me a while to really digest fully, because it is definitely a giant pivot. And I know, like, talking with a lot of like members of my gym and stuff who are big Beyonce fans, some love it, some hate it. So you have a lot of like disparity between people and stuff in there that maybe because they don't come from a house music background or anything, or they don't really listen to electronic music and stuff, and then she comes out with this, and it's I've seen a lot of varying opinions on the release so far of Renaissance. For
Really?
my opinion, yeah, because I know a lot of Beyonce fans because my gym is full of them, and varying opinions, big time varying opinions. So, with that, I actually think it's a good record. With the whole,
I think it's their best
you
record in
know,
years. I'll just like say that. And I really did enjoy
I
Lemonade, but
I
like,
think like, it's gonna take me a while to digest it to see where it is in her like discography. It is definitely like production wise and the way it flows, it's fantastic. Because the one thing that kind of bothered me, like with Drake's record and a couple other of the housey records, is they don't really play through very well. They're not the track order and the listing isn't necessarily good. Like sometimes it drags on too long, or the production of it doesn't hold out throughout the whole record. Might be top heavy or bottom heavy, whatever it is. The thing with Renaissance is it flows like a list. It flows like you're playing a show or something. So, like example, going from Cuff It to Energy, like the transitions in that, fantastic because you don't even really realize the song transitions half the time because sometimes they'll just flow right into it, and it feels like you're at a DJ set or something. Someone who's really good at DJing will mix it that well, and it just rolls right in. You don't hear the cuts, you don't hear the transitions, and you have that throughout this record, which
well,
is pretty impressive to do.
on that point, I now like Break My Soul a lot more. It's another one of those things where I like a single a lot more in the context of a record. So
100%.
where the now 3 times I've managed to hear this record in the like one day we've gotten to review this, I have gone back, and before I listen to Break My Soul, I play Energy before Break My Soul because I love that
So good.
transition. The end of Energy is made to be in the beginning of Break My Soul, and it really ties those together because the sampling, the kind of like shouting, the release the anger, release the all that kind of stuff
Yeah, yeah.
is kind of characteristic to Break My Soul only, and
Yep.
not really, but like that motif really needs energy and yes, Cuff It to kind of flow through into it. So I really, really love that.
Yep. Yeah. You and me both. And like the thing too is when it has the breaks in the record, it's perfect. So example, if Alien Superstar, Cuff It, Energy, Break My Soul, all of like those three tracks in the middle of the record, the beginning and middle of the record, they flow very well together. After Break My Soul, it doesn't have a transition to Church Girl. It stops and then you have Church Girl. And that's perfect because with that song, it doesn't need to have it the like for like that slower ish and more of a trap beat and everything with it. It's a nice little pause on it, so that way you don't just get, you know, an hour and 2 minutes of a house record or something, which in this day and age you're not necessarily going to want. So, but with that, I really like the production on all the tracks in here. I think it flows fantastic. It sounds like an album is supposed to sound like. You know, it's just everything is meant to, what is there is meant to be there. There isn't really one song out of place. It's not bottom nor top heavy in my opinion. And for someone who's been making music for 20 years and is a huge pop star, Beyonce's like she's one of the top by far.
Yeah.
And with the whole like pivot that we've been seeing a lot this year in the past couple years, some artists definitely do it better than others, and I don't want this to become a trend just because, you know, big name artists are doing it. You know, I don't want it to more people try to copy these records and stuff, you know, make music that you want to make and everything, and I don't want it to just saturate the market to where, you know, Drake and Beyonce now flood the whole music world, and now we get just a bunch of half-ass EDM records, which is my one worry of some of these. Um, but for Renaissance, I think it's a return to form for Beyonce, and yeah, I'm very pleasantly surprised with it.
I mean, it's weird because like I actually really like the actually really like. I don't think like it's weird for me to say like return to form for Beyonce because I don't really feel like Beyonce never looks.
I
at
would
it,
say return to
like,
form. I should say return to form, but like a good return for her because her last album was 6 years ago, you know,
yeah.
and to be able to keep it at such a high level for 20 years is impressive. So
I mean, like I would count the
it's
Lion King thing, but like not in the much same way that I don't really count Daft Punk's Tron. Like it's this kind of
yeah,
same deal. Like, I don't count the
exactly.
movie.
Or it's like
tie-in.
example. It's like Black Panther with Kendrick.
I was just about
Like
to
I
say
don't
that. Yeah.
I don't like example. Mr. Morale, Big Steppers is a return for Kendrick, like a huge return for Kendrick.
Yeah, I
Now
wouldn't
with
necessarily
Renaissance,
count that in Kendrick's discography because it's like a lot of a movie
not
tie.
really.
It's like yeah,
Even though
um,
some of the tracks like X and so on are great, I wouldn't do that. And the same thing with Lion King for Beyonce. Even some of the tracks are fantastic, it's not a specific project to Beyonce. Like just
it's not a
her
true
thing.
musician's project that we can like
Not
categorize with
true
everything else
LP.
we do on the podcast.
Exactly.
So
Yep.
like we're doing a lot of jumping around here. Fuck it, our
Yeah.
podcast. I think I do like. There's a point you were saying where there's songs that break up the nature of the record, like Church Girl, for
Yep.
example, is a bounce kind of track, but it's closer to trap, so to speak, where it kind of breaks up and goes, okay, this isn't like a really long house record, so to speak. Because I
Exactly.
do
Yeah.
think that would be kind of very difficult and like hard to be palatable for a lot of people. But then you get tracks like Virgo's Groove, which is just
Is
a
Virgo's
love
Groove
letter to
so-
all the house people.
Dude.
It's like, hey, I'm gonna.
I'm
Yeah,
this whole
go on.
review, by the way, I've just had that shit on repeat. I hope you know,
Love it.
because it's such a good track. I love it.
Yeah.
And like,
no, go into it.
and I was gonna say because the thing with like example, those little pivots in the middle of the record, it makes the record feel like it feels shorter than it is because of tracks like that. Because if you just had, you know, Energy and Break My Soul for an hour and 2 minutes, after a while you'd be like, okay, we get it. But with her, you know, branching out and doing a bunch of different sounds in one record, but still making it, you know, up tempo, more EDM focus, more Detroit house influences of Virgo's Grove and so on. You still get it to feel our album is the perfect length for this, which is something that I think is impressive to do in the setting that she made it. So
Yeah, and I
um,
usually say on Audioface in 2022, there's no need for this album to be this long. In 2022, there's
no, and
yeah,
like
but
there's only maybe a couple artists we want to have long
yes,
records, but it's I could count off honestly on my hand of how many artists I'd want a long record from.
yeah, and I think there's certain artists I believe earn the ability to do a long record. Beyonce is
Yes,
certainly one of
100%.
those, and I think that Beyonce does some really tasteful like motifs to a lot of modern music in here. I think one of my other like sleeper favorite songs is near the end is just like nonstop bangers. I mean, I think Move and Heated are nice songs in the middle, but Thick is really great. I really want to talk about All Up
Remind-
in Your Mind because I think
Yep,
there are little bits of callbacks to hyperpop within that. It's
yep.
not too glitchy,
And
it's not too
even
crazy, so definitely like a Beyonce fan will be down with it though. And what are you gonna say?
I said it's almost like she got inspiration from Billie Eilish style of pop music, where it's like that, that fine line between hyper pop and modern pop, as I like to kind of try to categorize this new sound that we're getting.
Yeah,
It's something that's
I see the
palatable to
DNA in a lot
fans.
of like later Sophie work as well. Like you've got to like
Yeah,
call
you
that
can
out
see
too as
that.
well. Yeah, and it's
Yeah,
a like yeah, rest in peace to her because it's a shame that we didn't get to see the rest of her musical careers like she was growing that. But you can see aspects of it here and a much more a palatable for a pop artist thing. I think a lot of Beyonce fans will grow onto this. I mean, the internet's very much like a. I saw a tweet that was like, anyone who slanders Beyonce today will find out that someone's trying to log into their Twitter account. They'll get like, oh, we need to verify your identity. We detected unauthorized access. Like they'll try to dox your house and shit. But like Bayhive, wild, crazy fans, right? But
super crazy.
I feel like even like folks like in your gym out there, folks who I think even we had a similar version of this conversation with Drake, right? Where is it a bad album? Is it a good album? Is it something that Drake fans are just like not used to because it's a different pivot and a different sound, calling back to other genres of music that maybe this artist's fans aren't used to consuming on a regular basis?
Mhm.
Or yeah, I think there's a lot of things going on here, and I tend to lean towards that latter analysis that um this is not saying anything about all Beyonce fans. This is a very like I think like people are taking this in a lot of different ways. I think it's a good. This is much better conversation than the Drake record. I think the Drake record was just like very fun to dunk on uh Drake fans with. Sorry, C's, love you, C's. But I think that this record, there's so much inspiration. I mean, you have artists and producers on here. The credits list is really interesting because you have a lot of really thoughtful sampling from all over the spectrum, from a lot of different genres to things that
I mean,
are callbacks in house music.
look at the last track, Summer Renaissance. It's Donna Summer's "I Feel Love," produced by Jojo Moroder, one of the
Yes.
earliest house music tracks that like made house what it is today. And I heard that this last track, and I was like, "This is really cool to do that," and do her own version of it in a way, but still stay true to the original track and the original production in a way, while still making it her own. I thought that was a really cool ending of the record. And normally, I don't normally like covers or something. Every once in a while, I like some here or there. That would be a very interesting conversation. By the way, side note, I would love to have on the podcast is covers of songs that we like, because there's some covers I think are actually better than the original songs. But
Yeah, I'm not the
that'll be a
biggest
conversation
covers
for one
guy,
day.
but there's one really big cover that like moves me emotionally every single time. That is we'll talk about it later. Like
No,
at a
we'll talk
future
about it.
point.
Yeah, I actually want to have a conversation on it one day. But yeah,
Join.syndicate23.co to get all these really cool music conversations. These conversations are two-way streets. We have them with members as well, by the way. And you can help support Audioface and all the stuff we do. Join.syndicate23.co. But yeah, I really thought it was a thoughtful. I enjoy when artists, especially really, really big artists, use their space to be thoughtful and call back to the legends, the OGs, the originals. Like in rap music, there's always a controversy when you feel like older artists aren't calling back or giving enough respect to newer artists. It's like newer artists aren't. Sorry, the other way around. Newer artists aren't giving enough respect to older artists, and I don't think you like have to constantly be doing that all the time but when you're making as big of a statement like this, it should be clear that like this statement isn't being made purely out of the genius of this artist. Like, of course, there's genius in putting it all together and doing it in the way she performs and sings and executes it. Really, Beyonce's execution is second to none. But to know that this is an inspiration, this is music as a process where you get inspired by a lot of things that all comes together in one way, I think it's important to show that in as broad a way as you can.
Very much agreed.
Yeah, so overall, I think there's a lot to go over in this album. I think it's just excellent. If you don't like it, give it a couple more listens. If you're a dance music aficionado, you will appreciate that someone like Beyonce is doing the damn thing. And this will make up for like Drake, by the way, who, again, I just thought it was a lackluster record. There are moments on this Beyonce record that I felt were muted. And I just like those are just songs I didn't really mention or go over very much. But I felt like a lot of this was very cohesive and worth, putting the Beyonce brand on it. It's like a seal of quality, so to speak. So I felt like it was really good. And this is coming from someone who like my personality is just against anti-hype in general, but it's like I don't get that hyped around Beyonce as around much people do. Like, okay, like yeah, she's a cool artist. She has like cool pop songs, billionaire, like cool, like whatever, right? But like I don't like get into it that much, but I am very, very impressed by this record.
You and me both.
Arbitrary Scale.
Arbitrary scale this week is shapes. We do arbitrary scales on Audioface because our review is our review, and rating scales are not the best way to show our appreciation of a record because every record is arbitrary. Every review is different. My review from 5 years ago on one record might be very different to how I feel on this different record, but they might both get the same scale if I use a normal scale. So we're doing shapes today. It could be any shape you want, man. Just not Ed Sheeran's shape of you. That's all. That's it.
I'm going to. Do you have a shape idea for this?
This is a parallelogram.
Okay. You just walk us through the parallelogramminess of this record.
The parallelogram. Oh my god, that's hard to say.
The parallelogramming.
Because it's a shape I like because you get the edges just right, and it's a very unique shape in the way that it kind of goes out, and it's very symmetrical. Which
I also like
us Germans appreciate.
It's a 4-sided shape, which are dance music is traditionally that 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4 kind of thing. So that's very smart.
Yeah.
I'm picking the isosceles triangle. It's
just normal isosceles, not isosceles, right? Just normal isosceles triangle.
It's a normal isosceles triangle, yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Box standard, I like it.
Yeah.
Good choice.
Not that it's standard, but it is a well executed triangle. It's not equilateral because that's just way too refined and perfect. This feels like it has personality. It has like edge. It has like groove. But it's not like one of those like obtuse or acute triangles, which is like a little bit too. Hey, that's a little modern art for me. No, I need a little bit of meat and potatoes with it.
I mean, okay.
Anyways, don't you love arbitrary scales? There is one other thing I really want to mention. So Renaissance is just apparently part 1 of a completed 3-act project. Okay, The Weeknd. No. But in Beyonce writing a letter to her fans, part of which I'll read now, I'll say, this 3-act project was recorded over 3 years during the pandemic, a time to be still, but also a time I found to be the most creative. Creating this album allowed me a place to dream and to find escape during a scary time for the world. It allowed me to feel free and adventurous in a time when little else felt moving. My intention was to create a safe space, a place without judgment, a place to be free of perfectionism and overthinking, a place to scream, release, feel freedom. It was a beautiful journey of exploration. I want to give a special thanks to Rumi, Sir, and Blue for allowing me the space, creativity, and inspiration, kids, and a special thanks to my beautiful husband and muse, Paul, who held me down those late nights in the studio. A big thank you to my uncle Johnny. He was my godmother and the first person to expose me to a lot of the music and culture that serves for an inspiration for this album. Kind of like what we were saying in the review of calling back to not just your actual elders, but your roots musically. Back to the letter. Thank you for all the pioneers who originate culture, to all the fallen angels whose contributions have gone unrecognized for far too long. This is a celebration of you. Thank you to my Parkwood crew, my Slab Dream, all the talented producers involved. Mama, I love you. To my father, my OG, my first teacher, you inspire me in every music I make. I love you. To my fans, I hope you enjoy this music. I hope it inspires you to release the wiggle, ha, and to feel as unique, strong, and sexy as you are. Love y'all deep, B. Yeah, kind of just like saying all of the right things there. I can't help but think of like, especially like the hyperpop thing I just said, like Fallen Angels there. Like we can't know if it's exactly about Sophie, but like especially in house music and EDM, there are a lot of people. Avicii's another example who like are massive artists who unfortunately pass on too young to even see. They see just the beginnings of their massive success and influence on the industry, but they don't even see like the massive ways it comes from there. So you know, it's a great little thing, but a 3-act project. She's Beyonce, so she can literally announce it on a Wednesday, and then like everyone just listens to it. So it's, who knows? She can do whatever she wants. She's like one of the biggest artists in the world.
Yeah,
it'll be probably really decent, but there are 2 points that I want to bring out that are mostly Sean's points, that I don't want other artists to chase this Beyonce Drake style pivot to dance that everyone's doing. You know, everyone's like, you know, it's inevitable, it's going to happen, but you have to be really thoughtful in doing it, because it's very easy to do it in a kind of a hacky, cheap way, Drake, and it's very easy to do it in a no, it's much harder. But there is a path and there are steps and ways to do it in a way that's thoughtful, that's respectful, but still pushes things a little bit forward. I'm honestly not
sure. Here's our 5-step program, how to make house music.
Sean and I start a pyramid scheme. But I think the Beyonce Drake dichotomy is something I'll be using, making an example of in the coming weeks, months, and years of Audioface.
Mm-hmm.